I'm Jody Hanchey. I'm a senior VDC manager at KAST Construction, and our company is a privately held general contractor. We're primarily a construction management at risk company. And we're mostly based in South Florida, but we do have projects that lean into Central Florida. If you haven't done work in Florida, we kind of break it up into three areas. You have Northern Florida, Central Florida, and Southern Florida. So it does vary by region. So anyway, that's just a little bit about our company. One of the things that I wanted to just hit on real quickly is the type of markets that we're in. We are mostly a multifamily, condominium, hospitality, high rise, you could say low rise garden style builder. We also work in other markets, but these are kind of our bread and butter. And we're usually working on ground up projects. I think maybe I've touched one renovation in the last like 6 years. So there's a lot of building going on down in South Florida. And so that means we're in very high traffic areas, areas that have zero lot line, areas that are highly congested. We have trains, railroads. There's lots of stuff that you need to take into account when it comes to your pre-planning and all your pre-construction. So I think that's just kind of important to note. From a high level, really, what I'm going to talk to you guys about is kind of our approach. I've got a case study that I also want to show, but I have some different examples. So I'm going to give you a little variety, not so much focused on one specific project, but kind of how we utilize DroneDeploy and cmBuilder collectively to support all of our pre-construction efforts, but also our construction efforts, obviously. We could save that conversation for obviously another like two or three more webinars here, Grant and Javier. So the approach that we take is kind of phased into three different buckets. You've got your pursuit bucket. Some may group in your pre-construction within that. But then for us, we kind of break it out. So we've got our pre-construction bucket and then our construction bucket. So I'm going to focus in on the pursuit side for a minute because I think it's really important when you are a VDC person and you have a manager, they're getting all these requests coming in, right? And for us, we wanted to streamline that process. So we developed an in-house kind of logistics form and a drone request form because it's just become kind of our standard. And so we want to be sure that we properly coordinate these items with our pre-con team, with our project teams. And so we asked for some basic information, like where's your project located? Because, we need to look up to see if there's certain FAA restrictions and those types of things. And then what are your deliverable dates, right? Is this for a book? Is this for a proposal that we're going to be doing virtually? Like what are the criteria, right? So it gives us a real high level view of what it is that we're going to be working on. From there, we're hoping that we have somewhat of a 2D format to kind of follow to get us started, but that's not always needed, right? The beauty about cmBuilder is that you can actually build those models from scratch while you're having a quick meeting with a superintendent or a project manager. So it's really easy for you to, focus in on, well, I need a 2D, overlay or something to get going. We say we don't always need that. We can get going from day one. So once we kind of have talked through, at least I think on a front end with our team about what it is we're looking to do, is then when we really start to go in and figure out what do our maps look like, what areas are we focusing in on, are there existing buildings that are going to remain that we need to ensure some type of space between when it comes to all of our logistics, and any of the design aspects. So on this particular project, we had a building that's in the kind of far right corner here, closest to the ocean, and it was going to remain. So we kind of had to build our logistics plan around that building. But otherwise, this one is kind of a one-off where it was on 15 acres of land. And so we're able to, kind of use up that whole space, which was nice. But once you fly it, then we're looking to get design models from our design partners. Sometimes you may not get that. And so you may have to consider, okay, we need to base model this from scratch. But ultimately, we're looking to get as much from the design side as we possibly can. And then we're taking all that information and we're combining that into cmBuilder. We're looking to show phasing, our logistics, and just really merging those two things to really convey that we've thought out our pre-planning. So I just kind of wanted to hit on that real quick here. And these are some examples. So in the past, right, like before DroneDeploy, we had Google Earth, and then before Google Earth, we really had maybe a civil drawing, right? There wasn't much else to go off there. And so on the left, I thought it was funny because in this project, we were like, had zero space, right, for laydown. We didn't have any room for anything. And we actually modeled all the surrounding area from scratch because we didn't even have much from Google Earth in this certain area of Sarasota. Fast forward to today, what's on your right hand side, which is really the new school way and now kind of the current standard. It's like, oh, we can just go out there and fly our sites and capture information and really skip all those steps that we used to have to take to comprise any type of logistical information. So in this particular example, one of the big selling points that I think helped us win this project is there's a park to the left of the proposed site. And so when we submitted this, the owner said that none of our competition were showing that. And I've got a good, I think, side-by-side comparison of this later on in the presentation, but there wasn't always a park here. There was a big parking lot. And so people were using that for their logistics. So I think it's kind of funny, like when you get wins like that, I think the value there is great. Kind of rolling into the pre-construction phase, once you kind of get that project, then you really start to dive into the details a little more, right? You getting so much more involved with, what is it that we need to be able to submit to get permits, to get certain authorizations. In this particular instance, if it was in the past, we would have gotten just this 2D markup of a crane radius and some markings showing something for the side of where they need certain things. But on the right hand side, the new school way of things, we took this and we actually submitted this to the city of Sarasota, got their buy-in. We also produced a FAA air rights for the tower crane, not only to the FAA, but also to the neighbors next door. So the neighbors next door, this was a brand new building. It was a Ritz residence. This was not currently in Google Earth for what it was when we needed to show this. It was basically just getting out of the ground from what they had. And so when we flew it, we obviously captured the entire building. And one of the concerns is that they didn't want the tower crane obviously swinging over their building and over their pool deck. So we definitely had to make sure that whatever we were submitting, that we've put all that detail and all that thought into our logistics planning. And not only that, I think there was a lot of restrictions on this particular project where we had to keep certain bypasses open for bicycles and pedestrians. And even the one in the middle of the site that's kind of orange has the arrows going both directions. We actually had to keep the middle of our site open for pedestrians. So that made it super challenging, and which is why we had to submit this to the city. Now, some of the gains that I think that you really get out of certain integrations, right, is that you kind of have one location to go find information, right? Your sole source of information, if you call it. For us, we are working directly within Procore most of the time. And so DroneDeploy and cmBuilder were obvious solutions for us because they talk to one another, and so their apps are integrated, which is really great for our pre-construction team. It's also great for our construction teams. So at the end of the day, if somebody needs to go view something for a particular reason, they have the ability to be able to do that. On this project, we also were utilizing 360 photos and integrated this into our process and pre-construction, because one of the things on this project, it started in 2020. And so this being a COVID project, it sat for a little while, and that gave us an opportunity to bring our subcontractors into this mock-up. So the owner had done a mock-up well before we were ever planning on building it, because it's a Westin hotel. They have certain criteria and standards that you have to get signed off on, that meet their standards. And so this mock-up got done before we even had contracts signed with any of our trades. And so we were able to actually walk them through all of these actual mock-ups. And then in addition, we have these 360 photos now, to where during construction, we can obviously go back and reference those. But I think it was really critical in our pre-construction phases, being able to take people through these. They could physically see what it is they're going to be buying out and providing. And so for cmBuilder, I think one of the big integrations here for us is just being able to merge those two and give this access to our superintendents and project managers, right? They can actually get into these models and they can spin it in any way they want. They can look inside of the model and be able to see that, okay, maybe that crane can't go there, or maybe the hoist is in, the wrong location. And so I think in that aspect, it certainly is invaluable to us. On this particular project, we did a 4D deliverable, but also 2D deliverables during the proposal phase. So we basically did, with the 4D, we were able to produce 2D documents. And then something that let me go back just one step here. So this is a 360 photo, and something that I had mentioned to DroneDeploy, and something or not DroneDeploy, but cmBuilder, and something that they're working on, is we wanted the ability to see what our view would look like from the actual site. This project's downtown West Palm Beach. We're right across the intercoastal, and then beyond that is Palm Beach, the little island that you see, and then beyond that's the Atlantic. So the request came in, and it wasn't just, hey, can you give us a 3D logistics plan? It was, can you give us a 3D logistics plan that also includes the view? And so we're like, how are we going to do that? Okay, so with the drone, we planned a 360 photo, and I was able to basically to superimpose this in here through trial and error. The other component to this is, with the drone, we determined that there was going to be a brand new building that was going next door. So that's the massing that you see to the left of the site. That was not completely aware to all of us. Maybe some people, right? There's always silos when you when you work in construction sometimes. But through conversations, it was like, oh, we were looking at the drone flight, and it looked like the site had been cleared. And someone said, oh yeah, there's going to be a tower going up there. So that became a big topic of conversation. And we didn't have a model for it, so we kind of had to just mock something up in there. But really, it came down to, okay, what kind of crane are we going to use? And really started to utilize that information to better plan for that project. And then the one case study that I really wanted to dive into from a pre-construction standpoint. So this project is located over in Clearwater, Florida. It's basically on the intercoastal side of things. It's a 10-story boutique hotel. At the current, it started off as an 11-story boutique hotel, and we received the RFP back in December of 2022. And this was the original kind of markup that I was given to kind of start putting together some information. So before we basically ever even got involved, right, we started with our process with, okay, what do we need to capture here? And so one of the big things that was noted to us is that where the large parking lot is to the left, and then the grassy area to the north, that area was being transformed into a new amphitheater. And so we obviously made a plan to get our drone maps configured and capture that area. And this was the example I mentioned earlier where the owner said, I think you guys were the only ones that picked this up in your logistics plans. So I thought that was really cool and a testament to the programs and the services that we're offering to really drive home for a pre-construction effort. It's just little things like that that can really make a difference. So diving into this particular project, so since we've been working on it since 2022, I want to say we've had about 6 iterations of budget. And about, I would say, a year and a half ago, we were in about DD phase with this project. And the owner even went back out to the market, but again selected us for this for this project, even though we were awarded pre-con previously. The numbers just weren't working out for them, and so at the end of the day, we're still working with this client to get to our number. But one of the things that I thought was just really telling is it's kind of one of those examples where which picture doesn't look like the other. And you start to see all the differences in between each design iteration. So one, it was really important that we had somewhere to obviously make like a few deliveries to the north of the project. But the way the project in RFP and concept phase, it was laid out very oddly, I think, when it came to the basement. And so it was supposed to be a 2-story basement. Fast forward to schematic phase, we were still at a 2-story basement, but now our crane is inside the basement footprint. We've changed a little bit of the outline of the entire basement footprint. And then fast forward to the pre-GMP phase, we are finally able to take a little bit of space to the north where the pump truck is located right now. And then the layout of the footprint still keeps changing a little bit at the corners, and the tower crane remained the same. But then jump to the GMP phase, and we shifted the tower crane like 5 feet. So we went through iteration of iteration with the design team, with the owner, and we're really trying to utilize this information to make informed decisions. That includes also where the hoist is located. And one of the biggest issues I think that we ran into was, that accessibility. And so in the concept RFP and schematic phase, we had the hoist on the west side of the building. However, there was access issues with that. We weren't going to be able to get over there. And so we then started looking at the north side of the building, which is what you see in the pre-GMP and the GMP phases. And so the pre-GMP phase, unfortunately, was too far set back from the tower. And so we were going to have to produce some type of platform or other means to obviously get those elevators to the facade. That was going to be costly. So then come around and we say, okay, for the GMP phase, let's move it back to the west. But in this point, we're at the garage entrance. So we should be able to make that work. And so that's currently what is stuck. But I think the biggest thing here is, we've been working with our teams to develop this over time. And every time that we've produced a budget, we've been updating our logistics plan and our sequencing to really talk through like what those issues look like. So it went from a 2-story basement with 11-story tower to now a 1-story basement with a 10-level tower, and at the end of the day, we're still negotiating with the owner on that pricing. I think your pre-construction phase, technically, we're somewhat still in it, right? We're still budgeting, and we're really trying to get to that GMP that the owner has, in their mind that they want to hit. So hopefully, we come to a conclusion there here soon. It's supposed to start in April. And I think just to summarize for us is that, we started using cmBuilder and DroneDeploy in 2022. Since then, we've had 55 projects each which goes along pretty much with our standard services, right? We want to fly every project. We want to do a logistics plan in 3D for every project. There's no reason why, when a pursuit comes in, you know, even with the most basic information, right, that we can't utilize the information and the people that we have. We have five, I think, licensed FAA and insured drone pilots in-house. If we can't utilize them, then we obviously go through other means. But for the most part, we're creating the maps. We're working through with our project teams to figure out what it is we need to fly. And these are kind of some of the numbers of our drone data to kind of attest to that, right? Some of that obviously carries through into construction, so you could take out a small percentage there, but for the most part, a lot of this is being done on the very front end, and it helps us, I think, invaluably from a standpoint of it supporting our needs for our company and our clients. So that's all I have, and appreciate everyone's time, and thank you.